All right, Al, we're back. Interview number 2.
We're back, Shawnee.
Yeah.
Glad to be back.
This time, Ray White Double Bay #1 agent and Ray White Network #5 agent. Congrats.
Thank you.
What got you here, man? In the last 2 years, what did you do?
Mate, it's been a lot of hard work. I mean, yeah, the market's been pretty strong, to be fair, but I've had a strong team. We've been really kind of consistent in our core areas, which is kind of Bellevue Hill and Vaucluse. Currently the #2 agent in Vaucluse. Elliot, our principal, is #1. So it's just been a lot of consistent hard work, I think, for us. So the last financial year, 23-24, I did over $250 million worth of property sales in the eastern suburbs.
2% commission, that's a lot of money.
Doing my best. Not in it for the money, Shawnee.
Yeah. One thing working, I've probably done the most deals with you out of the east, is you get deals done. Like you put them together.
Yeah.
Like some people, they throw a number, it doesn't work, and just sit there. You always can get the numbers to get both sides to work, and that's a big difference.
You know, I think price is one part of the equation, but again, going back to like what that person's going to do with those funds. You know, are they upsizing? Are they downsizing? Is that property right for that particular buyer? And then kind of trying to make the transaction work on both sides. Because you can't just be one-sided in any transaction, you've got to be balanced. I think that's really important when you're trying to put a deal together, is you have to see it from both sides of the equation. Because if you're only seeing it from one side, then you know, you're just not going to get there with a deal. I think if you can find that balance and you justify to your owners and to the buyers as to why this is the best option for both parties, that's when you can start to put deals together.
Yep, fully agree.
Look, I mean, I'm lucky that I've got good relationships with a lot of real estate agents in the East, and you know, a lot of the people that I'm doing conjunctions with, I've been working with them for many years. My preference is to always kind of be the captain of the ship, and I think that is not only beneficial for us, but it's also beneficial for our owners. You know, in particular, recently we've been doing some conjunctions where buyers have been calling myself and then calling the co-agent. And if our stories aren't completely aligned, you know, the other agent doesn't really know where that conversation got up to with that particular buyer. They might say something that they don't understand what I've said to the buyer, that might derail the process. It can actually be quite harmful to owners and campaigns. So I think having one agent captaining the ship and obviously allowing other agents to maybe introduce buyers, in my opinion, is probably a better method of sale and a better approach to a campaign.
Yeah. Obviously getting paid half the commission doesn't energize any agent.
Look, you know, it's not even that. I think it's more so, typically in conjunctions, the owner will inevitably pay more of a commission because let's say you're paid 2.2% conjunction, which is split 50-50. Down the middle, you get 1.1% each. Whereas if you just go with a singular agent, you'll probably end up paying between 1.5% and 2%. Yeah. So you'll end up actually paying less and probably get a better level of service and more streamlined campaign.
The reason a lot of people try to do a conjunction co-agent is they think it's different databases. Do you believe in that? Probably
not in the sense of like, it probably is so if you're going with, let's say, a high-performing agency like Ray White Double Bay and a high-performing agent like our team, and then maybe pairing them up with someone who probably doesn't perform as highly as we do. You are getting the strength of us and maybe the relationship you have with that other agent. If you're pairing up two high-performing agencies, I think you're probably going to find that most of them have crossover, and most buyers who are on their database are also in our database. I probably think the reason is, you know, owners find it hard to choose between two agents that they might have long-standing relationships with, or they might have a relationship with an agent that they know isn't really strong in that area, so they want to bring the area specialists like us in Vaucluse or Bellevue Hill to make sure that they are getting the area specialists as well as their lifelong friend that they've had a relationship with for 20 years.
They learn how to say no.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. So if I'm an owner out there and I'm looking to sell, my advice is pick an agent and pick the agent who's doing the most in the area.
I've never asked any Eastern Suburb agent this question, but since the Ray White Awards just finished, what do you think of Josh Teslin from Quakers Hill?
Josh is a good man. I mean, he's pretty amazing in the sense of, you know, the deal volume, keeping up with the deals. I think his model, I would be very interested to see if that same model would work in the eastern suburbs. No. I'd be surprised if it did, and just his clientele is a little bit different to the clients that we're working with. But mate, that guy is, you know, an absolute hustler. You know, to be doing 350 plus deals in 1 year is something that I can't even fathom, nor probably I want to do, to be honest. So the volume he's doing is very impressive, and you know, I think he's got a long career ahead of him. I think For me, it's probably more so to do with the language barrier. The Chinese community, if we think about it, has really only been as strong as it is probably for the last decade. And I think for the cultural differences and the language barriers for true Chinese agents to shine has been a challenge. You've got to be balanced because our community is so multicultural. You've got South Africans, Russians, locals, expats. You've got such a wide array of different buyers and owners in the area. You can't just be focused on one particular type of community. Whereas it looks at likes of Chatswood, you've got 90%, 85% Chinese communities in those areas. I think the Chinese community is getting stronger and stronger as the years go on, and I think there's a big place for strong Chinese agents to really shine, but I think they have to be completely across both Chinese and English speaking and really understand both cultures intimately. But we're seeing a lot of good Chinese agents coming through. We've got great people in our office, Cindy and Pam, who've joined our office.
It's actually very hard because it has been a big advantage for me, but just to have fluent local accent, English and Chinese, I haven't seen one or two.
And I mean, think about the interview 2 years ago. I was saying to you, you should be a buyer's agent, and to see your growth as personally and as your agency over the last 2 years has been amazing. And I think it's because you understand better than anyone how to get a deal done, how we in Australia, in the Australian market, do deals. And you've made it so simple and easy for your clients, whether they've been in the country for 6 months or 10 years, understand how we can get a deal done in the quickest and best way, but also the way you've built up, in my opinion, your relationships with real estate agents like myself to be a trusted advisor to the Chinese community is amazing. So I'm glad I pushed you into that 2 years ago.
What's the talk internally like about our agency?
I think it's strong. I think, as you just said, for me, like, I get deals done, you do too. I think that you understand your clients, you understand what they're looking for, and you go out there and you work hard to be able to service them. If I can look at any buyer's agent who's come onto the scene and kind of exploded as quickly as you have, no one's done that in the last 10 years. So I think as soon as we get a property, I think every agent would be stupid not to call you straight away, because you've got a wealth of buyers and a strong network that even if you didn't have a buyer on your books, you inevitably think of one or call someone and think you've been an asset to have in that community. I hope so. If I can see your success, I hope that there's going to be a bigger network of Chinese buyers agents, under the Concierge's brand that we can rely on. I think the one hurdle is the same as the selling agent's hurdles, is just understanding our culture, building the relationships, and being bilingual in Chinese and English. I think a lot of people are obviously very fluent in Chinese, but there's still a significant language barrier in the English. I think having that ability to cross between the two, from a cultural perspective as well as a language perspective, if you have that combination, you should be seriously thinking about getting into this industry. That's the challenge. And that's what you have very well, is you have the sales background, Chinese speaking background, Chinese community background, as well as the English speaking community background, which has been...
I'm getting a lot of people emailing and calling me saying they've been through Ben Handler's buyer's agent course and if they can potentially join my company. And my first question is always, number one, where do you live, and also how much knowledge of the East do you have? And the answer I usually get is not what I want. The East is, I think, completely different from any other area pocket in Australia. Every street can be 3-5 times different on price, on build. How long do you personally, I mean, you're a young agent still, how many years do you think you can very comfortably think you really understand it?
I think that is honestly more to do with the individual. I didn't grow up here, right? I grew up in Brisbane and Sunshine Coast and Noosa. I reckon I picked it up in the first 12 months. But it's because I want to make that happen. Like, I was going to every auction, door knocking every street to become familiar with the area, understanding the buyers, asking people questions. I think it's more on the individual. I think it's definitely possible, but you've really got to want it. If you come into this industry being an outsider out of the East, thinking that you're going to do well in the first 12 months just by making a few phone calls, it's just not going to happen. But if you are out there every day, going to all the properties, understanding who the buyers are, who the best agents are, creating those relationships and really, really hustling, I think you can do it. I think it takes 12 months for the right person.
Like you just mentioned, there's a lot of agents in the East, especially older ones, who always they grew up in the East, they know the East better, what they breed. Every time that goes against you, how do you face it?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm lucky that I've got a track record now of sales and consistently record-breaking sales that I can put in front of owners to say, look, I understand that, but put me up against that agent and just do a comparison basis on the last 12 months. This is what I've sold, this is what they've sold. I think at the end of the day, my track record typically over the last 12 months is better than that agent's. So I think that's pretty powerful.
Because it's the same thing happened to me, and my answer was, well, if they've been that successful in the East for 20, 30 years, tell me where they live.
Correct.
What have they bought? What have they invested? How much money have they made?
And I think that's definitely a one part. But I think at the end of the day, and there's been a couple of good agents, right, that have really changed that older demographic of, you need to have silver hair and have 20 years of experience or 30 years of experience. Been a couple of agents that have bucked that trend over the last 10 years, not going to mention names, but that have definitely helped us as younger agents almost change the perception in people's minds that it's almost a younger person's game now. Because you've got to be on the phones, you've got to be hustling. You can't just, like it was.
Energy.
Correct, you need energy in this game. And like it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago when realestate.com and domain didn't exist, you put an advert in the Courier and everyone would call you. The whole game has changed. And if you're not the best on social media, if you're not the best on digital marketing, if you don't understand those elements of how to sell a property now, and you're still stuck on went with Courier and just, which is definitely an element to it. I love the Courier and, it serves its purpose. But if you're not up to date on how to sell a property in 2024, it's evolving so quickly, you're kind of being left behind. In my opinion, you need someone who's young, who's hungry, who's on top of the best methods of sale in this current market. I think sentiment definitely shifted up and people are a bit more positive on the market outlook since that happened in the US. Rates were put on hold yesterday in the RBA. We're typically around 6 months behind the American economy, so the forecasting is that rates are probably going to start to come down in February next year, hopefully. I think that's probably going to spur the market along. Do I think it's going to change the market significantly? Probably not, especially at our end of the market. But what I think it's going to do is it's just going to put confidence back in the market that people should continue to invest in the East. I think it will probably continue to go up. I think it will be a gradual incline. I don't think it's going to go 10% every month like it did in 2021 or 5%, but I think it will be a gradual incline. Right now, for the next 6 months, I just see it flattening, which is a good time to buy before it kicks back up again, probably in Q2 next year.